Okay, this is Algebra 2, test number 1. We only got through one lesson, but it's a lot of remediation stuff, our test for our test this week. First one says, which number does not equal 27 over 30? Then you have three different versions or four different versions, four different values that show up. Which one doesn't equal 27 over 30? Well, you have to look, that says 27 divided by 30. So if you divide 27 by 30, or you just simplify the fraction, might be an easier way for some people. 3 goes into 27 9 times, and it goes into 30 10 times. We know 9 over 10 is the same thing as 90%. 0.9 is the same thing as 90%, and we just got 9 over 10. So just basically using process of elimination, 0.27 is not the right one. If you did it a different way, you could have said that 0.27 is the same thing as 27%, which is 27 over 100. You can clearly see that that's not the same thing as 27 over 30. So B is the one, B as in big boy, is the one that's not equal to it. Which one equals 0.69? Okay, 0.69, that is the hundredths place, 1/100th place. Okay. So that means 69 over 100, or 69%. Per 100 means percent. A, apple for that one. Then we started the short answer stuff. It says sales tax in one state is 9% on a $30.95 purchase. $30.95 purchase. What's the amount of tax you're going to pay? Notice what the question says. What's the amount of tax? Had it said what you total, you know you'd have to find that tax and then add it back. We're just looking for the tax itself. Anytime you're talking about a percentage of something, you're going to multiply. But you can't multiply by 9. Again, it's 9%, which means per 100. So if you divide 9 by 100, you're going to get 0.09. What most people do, though, by the time they're in the grade you guys are in, they understand in order how to change 9%, they know to just move the decimal over 1 time, 2 times, and then plug in a 0 in that empty space. So 0.09 times $30.95. Even if you don't have a calculator, you can do this. We're only doing 9 times a few numbers. 9 times 5 is 45. 9 times 9 is 81 plus 4, which is 85. 9 times 0 is 0 with another 8 is 8, and then 9 times 3 is $27. So right here we have 27,855. Then we have to see how many times do we have to move our decimal. We got to move it once, twice for that one, 3 times, 4 times for that one. So if it's here, we move it at 1, 2, 3, 4 times. So we have 2.7855. Now you know how money works. It doesn't. There are no numbers after the hundredths place. So you need to get nothing past that spot right there, that 8. Okay, so we have 2.7855. Remember, you can't go past that hundredths place. So you guys know how to round by this point. You look, that's the number you want to either go up or leave it alone. Look at the number behind it, 5. You remember 5 or higher means to round up. So 2.78 becomes $2.79 is your tax on a $30.95 purchase. Okay, then you had to simplify these problems. Simplify 7 over 8 plus 1 over 6. You want the smallest number that 8 and 6 go into, which is 24. If you multiply them by each other and got 48, that's okay. You're just going to have to simplify it at the very end. Multiply this one by 3. So you got to multiply 7 by 3 to get 21 over 24. Multiply this one by 4. So multiply this one by 4. 1 times 4 is 4. You got the bottom numbers the same, 24. Add up 21 and 4, and you get 25 over 4. There's no number that goes into both 25 and 24. So it'll be in that form. However, tomorrow, when it is multiple choice, remember, it may be a mixed number form. It may be the answer 1 and 1 over 24. Just know that both of those are the same answer. If you ever, during the middle of a test, if you ever say, Coach, I know I worked it right, I came up with this, but it's not a multiple choice, it's not a right answer, I'm going to tell you to check again, it's there. Okay? I'm going to tell you to check again, it's there. Number 5 says -2 plus -3. If you need to think of a number line on this one, -2 is here. Plus -3 means to go to the left. Plus a negative means the same thing as -3. So you're going to go 1, 2, 3 to get -5 for 5. Number 6 says -8 times negative 4. A negative times a negative is a positive. 8 times 4 is 32. Number 7 says negative 25 divided by 5. A positive, opposite signs divided by positive is going to be negative anytime they're opposite. 25 divided by 5 is going to be 5. Number 8, divide 2/3 by 3 over 6. 2/3 divided by means multiplied by. 3 over 6 means multiplied by the reciprocal 6 over 3. 6 times 2 is 12. 3 times 3 is 9. The number 3 goes into both of them. This one, it goes into it 4 times. This one into it 3 times. Again, this is improper 4 over 3, but it is simplified. Remember, that's the same thing as 1 and 1/3, or 1.33 repeating. 1/7 divided by 9 over 21. Here's a different way to do this problem. You can simplify this first and say the number 3 goes into this one 3 times, into this one 7 times. So now you have 1 over 7 divided by 3 over 7, which means 1 over 7 times, all I did was made smaller numbers a second ago, the reciprocal 7 over 3. Again, you could cross cancel at this part and cancel. 7 goes into both of those 1 and 1 times, so you're left with 1 over 3. Or you can say, well, if I multiply 1 times 7 at the top, I get 7, and 7 times 3 at the bottom, I get 21. The number 7 goes into both this one once and into this one 3 times, 1 over 3. Write 366 miles in 11 hours as a rate in simplest form. So as a rate. So we're writing this as a rate in simplest form. Remember, rate is the same thing as speed. So, think of a speedometer, think of miles per hour. So rate is miles, which is distance, per hour, which is time. So right here we have your rate or your speed. Your miles measurement is 336 miles per 11.2 hours. So then just divide 336 by 11. I wrote 11, 11.2. So 336 divided by 11.2. And you'll see that your rate or your speed in this case is 30 miles per hour. Number 11 says solve T equals V over Q for Q. Okay, so what that says is T equals V divided by Q. So in order to get Q by itself, undo divide by Q by multiplying by Q. If you do it to the right, multiply by Q on the left. Notice it'll cancel on the right and leave us with just V equals Q times T. But we're not solving for V. It says solve for Q. So we got to do it one more time. Q times T, divide, in order to cancel out that multiplication, divide by T, because we want to keep Q. And if you divide the left by T, do the same on the right. It'll cancel it here and leave you with V over T. So Q equals V over T. Evaluate Y equals X plus 2 times X minus 5 when X's value equals 6. So Y equals X plus 2. We're saying X's value is 6. So 6 plus 2 times, again, X's value is 6 minus 5. So Y equals 6 plus 2 is Y equals 8 times 6 minus 5 times 1. Y's value equals 8. All we did was substituted and simplified. We're naming these properties of real numbers. Negative 2 outside the parentheses times X plus 11. When you distribute negative 2 or you give it to both the X and the 11, notice you get negative 2x minus 22. That is called the distributive property. You do not have to, you don't have to specify with the distributive property if it's multiplication or addition, because you're not going to use the distributive property in addition. 2 times the square root of 8 times 7 equals 2 times the square root of 8 times 7. Notice the only difference between these two sayings, or these two sides of the equation, or which group's first. Notice the radical and 7 are first on the first one, and 2 and a radical are first on the second one. So the order doesn't change, but that's an equal sign in between them. The order doesn't change, but the order that you multiply them does change, or the way it's associated. So this is actually the associative property, and it's of multiplication this time because you're multiplying. Again, that's the part that people leave off because they think it's so easy. Number 15 says pi times 6 equals 6 times pi. Again, nothing's changing except the order of these two. They're commuting from one part of the problem to another part of the problem. Or the first term pi and the second term 6 or swatching. I can't talk. They're flipping and they're changing areas. They're commuting. This is the commutative property, and again of multiplication. 16 says negative 6 plus 6 is equal to 0. Negative 6 plus 6 is equal to 0. Negative 6 is using the inverse operation of minus 6, so it's plus 6, and it's becoming 0. This is called the inverse property, and this is of addition because we're dealing with addition. Negative 2.5 plus 0. Notice the difference between 16 and 17. The identity of this is not changing. Negative 2.5 is remaining negative 2.5 from the beginning to the end. So this is one where its identity doesn't change. Identity, property, and again, this one is of addition. Identity, property of addition. Number 18 says evaluate these expressions with the given value of the variable. So we have two different values. We have A's value is negative 6, so we're going to sub in 5 times negative 6, plus B's value is negative 5, so plus 5 times negative 5. Do the multiplication first. 5 times negative 6 is negative 30. 5 times negative 5 is minus 25. Negative 30 minus 25, you're starting off, you need to think of a number line. You're starting at negative 30 and you're subtracting 25 more, so you're going that way in order to get negative 55. The next one, number 19, says 4 times 3h minus 6 over 1 plus h, and then they give us a value. H's value is negative 2. So 4 times 3 times h, or I'll make this into a bracket, 3 times negative 2 minus 6, and then close the bracket, over 1 plus negative 2, again, is h's value. So do the innermost parentheses problem first. Remember your order of operations. Please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. Now we can do something inside the parentheses. We can go ahead and look at everything just inside our brackets here. There's nothing inside that negative 2 that we can change, but we can do what's inside those parentheses. Again, you work through your order of operations once you're inside the parentheses, so you work any kind of exponents, then you do multiplication and division, followed by addition and subtraction. But right here we have multiplication. 3 times negative 2 is going to be negative 6 minus 6. It's still in parentheses on the top. Over 1 plus a negative 2. I'm going to go ahead and change this real quick to 1 minus 2, just to get rid of some stuff we don't need to look at. Again, still in parentheses. Negative 6 minus 6 now. Negative 6 minus 6 now is going to be 4 times. Sorry about that. Negative 6 minus 6 it's going to make 4 times negative 12. You're going to put negative 6 and minus 6 together. Over 1 minus 2 is negative 2. We have multiplication to do at the top. 4 times negative 12 is going to be negative 48. And you have negative 1 at the bottom. Now it says negative 48 divided by negative 1. Same signs, negative divided by negative is going to make it into a positive 48, and there's no reason to write it as over 1. Positive 48. And again, I know that's a lot of steps to get through that. I know I scrolled down the page, but for number 19, positive 48. When we go to number 20 and 21, again, we're doing the same thing. We're plugging in values for these. In place of x, we're plugging in negative 3. There's a negative first. Negative, then negative 3 squared minus 4 times negative 3 minus 4. Okay, do what's inside parentheses first. Notice your two sets of parentheses just say negative 3 inside. There's nothing to do to manipulate those. So go to the next step in your order of operations, exponents. Do this exponent here. Negative 3 squared means negative 3 times negative 3, which is a positive 9. But there's still this negative out front. Don't forget that one. So we have positive 9 minus 4 times negative 3 minus 4. Now do your multiplication step next. So treat this as if it says negative 1 times 9, which makes it negative 9. Negative 4 times negative 3 means positive 12, and then minus 4. Then do your addition and subtraction step at the end. Negative 9 plus 12 is positive 3, and positive 3 minus 4 is going to be negative 1 to finish up. And then finally, number 21 says negative 2x to the third power minus x squared plus 5x plus 2 when x's value is negative 3. So negative 2 times negative 3 to the third power minus negative 3 squared plus 5 times negative 3 plus 2. All we did was substitute it in values negative 3 in place of x. So do your exponent step now, because there's nothing you can do to manipulate what's inside of the parentheses. Negative 3 to the third power means negative 3 times negative 3 times negative 3. We know a negative times a negative is going to be a positive 9, and then positive 9 times negative 3 is going to be negative 27. So that's evaluating that exponent. Bring down your negative 2. Evaluate the other exponent. There's a negative out front. Negative 3 squared means negative 3 times negative 3. Again, is positive 9. Plus 5. We'll leave this step as the next step, the multiplication step. Plus 2. Now do your multiplication step. Negative 2 times negative 27. Negative times a negative is going to be a positive 54. Negative 1 times 9 is going to be negative 9. Positive 5 times negative 3 is going to be negative 15, and then plus 2. And then finish up with your addition and subtraction step. 54 minus 9 is going to be 45. 45 minus 15 is going to be 30, and 30 plus 2 is going to be 32. Or you can do it this way and just say 54 minus 9 will be 45, and do negative 15 plus 2, which is going to give you negative 13, and then put these two together in order to get 32. It's your simplified answer.